I'd like to share a story of 5 teenage boys who spent their summer vacation looking for a lost city in the jungles of Honduras. That adventure changed their lives and mine forever, and I hope it'll give you a sense of appreciation for your own life. It was 1976, and my father had heard a legend about a city called Ciudad Blanca, or the White City. Reportedly, it was overflowing with gold and treasure, but it was located in a very remote, inhospitable, relatively unexplored and uninhabited region of Central America. For centuries, countless explorers had searched for the treasure, some of whom had never come back. So who better to send on this wild goose chase than his 2 teenage sons? Dad's pitch was simple. "It'll be a great adventure," he said. "You'll love it. You'll live amongst the local natives. It'll be an experience of a lifetime." My brother and I were excited. So we told a friend, and before you knew it, he and his brother and his cousin wanted in. This is the first picture of us taken at an Indian village on the Mosquito Coast. This was about as clean and dry as our new Explorer outfits would be all summer. We were typical middle-class teenagers living in suburbia, U.S.A. We were clueless. We had no idea what we were getting into, but we'd soon find out how little we appreciated about our everyday lives. The group consisted of my brother Jim, 17-year-old competitive swimmer with a rebellious streak, our friend Mike, 16-year-old goody two-shoes with a lust for adventure, his older brother Chris, 17-year-old soft-spoken introvert who had really no clue what he was getting into, and Chris and Mike's cousin Brian, who came down from Michigan, high school jock and a prankster. And then there was me, the youngest of the group at 16 years old. Shy, insecure, daredevil. At first, the place was paradise. The local villagers were warm and friendly. The farm animals were running free, as you can see. We were told to photograph the important stuff. To a teenage boy, this is important stuff. Life without plumbing was important as well. It was right about here we got our first reality check. There was no running water. There was no electricity. There was no air conditioning. There was no pantry filled with food. For that matter, we didn't even know how to prepare our own meals, unless it was maybe a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. This was our introduction. This pig was to be our main course at the welcome dinner. He was delicious. And needless to say, we ate like pigs. No pun intended. But the change in diet probably didn't agree with our systems because we were all violently ill the next day. And this is where we got an additional reality check. There were no hospitals. There were no doctors. There were no phones. There were no roads. There was nothing but a ham radio. We were truly isolated. And this is where the first thought that we could die out here crept in. It didn't help, of course, that a few days later the villagers showed up with a freshly shot Jaguar. We didn't have any guns. Thankfully, I think. My dad figured that out. We had our little explorer knives and our Boy Scout compasses, and we were given a machete that would help us cut through the thick jungle. But the reality was we had no survival skills whatsoever. Now, Dad probably realized this, so he hired a survival guide, an ex-Marine snake hunter. He was to arrive a couple weeks after we got there and help lead us into the jungle. He He was a 28-year-old Vietnam veteran with a morbid fascination for death. This is true. This is him in the foreground as we head upstream, about to venture into the jungle. We didn't know then, but we'd soon have a plot to kill our guide. Now, the natives had told us where they thought this lost city was supposed to be, but nobody would go there. Nobody would lead us there. Nobody wanted to help because they believed in a curse that anyone who entered the lost city would die a violent death. This should have been our first clue to turn around, but we didn't. And we kept trudging through the mud and the rain. The guide didn't help either, as he told us the things we could eat could kill us, the big animals could kill us, snakes could kill us, even the fer de lance, the very snake he was hunting. And after a couple of days, we were tired and we were hungry and we were mentally exhausted and we wanted to go back. But none of us wanted to quit. We didn't want to be quitters. So we kept on through the mud and the rain and the rain and the rain. It never stopped raining. We were wet 24 hours a day. We slept in our wet clothes. The jungle hammock was no relief from the rain. And we'd take our wet boots off with our wet socks to wrinkled, blistered feet. We were miserable. We didn't know what to do but to continue on. And we thought, in our delusions, we may not get out of here alive. And that reality slapped us in the face one day when our guide looked at us and he said, if we find this lost city and any gold, I'm going to kill each and every one of you. We believed him. We had nowhere to go. We had no place to run and hide. We felt like trapped animals. So that night, we huddled together and we hatched a plan to kill our guide. It was a simple plan, actually. The next night, we'd kill him in his sleep. This is true. It was the execution part that was a challenge. Not the execution of the plan. He had a gun, we didn't. What if he hurt us? What if he shot us? We couldn't all come at him with machetes, we'd probably hurt ourselves. So we had no experience in this kind of stuff. That night, we didn't sleep much at all. And the next day, we kept convincing ourselves that we had no other option. And we figured this was the only way we were going to get out of there alive. And then fate stepped in. Moments after this photograph was taken, we were hit by a wall of water, a flash flood, as they call it. Everything we had, the mules, the gear, the food, the film, everything was swept away. Everything unless it was strapped to our bodies. And this was the justification for us to turn around and go back. And thus, the plan to kill the guide would be off. It's funny how in a few short weeks, one's entire life's perspective can change. And I often look back and I wonder if we truly could have gone through with the plan to kill our guide. I don't know if we ever would have done it. I probably will never know the answer to that. But I do know what I've taken away from those last 37 years. And that is primarily I apply to my life every day, and that is to appreciate everything. Don't take anything for granted. The roof over your head, the food in your bellies, the air that you breathe, your family, your friends, your life, your health, everything. And don't be afraid to take risks. Many times people say, oh, I'm afraid I might fail. Many times the fear of failure is much worse than the failure itself. And if you don't take those risks, you'll never know the rewards that are out there and truly appreciate life. Which brings me to enjoy the things you do. Without enjoying your life and being happy, you'll never truly appreciate your life. And to wrap it up, a couple of months after we returned, ABC Television commissioned a documentary on our adventure. We did not, of course, tell them about our plan to kill our guide. 4 out of the 5 teenagers who went on that trip are doing well, living happy, healthy, productive lives. One of them, unfortunately, Brian, passed away a few years ago of skin cancer. Our guide was arrested a few years later for smuggling drugs into the country. And as for the lost city, the search continues. We were contacted last summer by a gentleman who had been fascinated by Ciudad Blanca for years. And he then sent a research crew, flew over the jungle region, shot laser pulses and created a 3D map, and now he claims he knows where the lost city is. He had asked us if we wanted to go. We said no, of course. But we send your children. But we did give him one piece of advice. Don't go in the rainy season. And with that, my piece of advice to you is that you live your life to its fullest and wake up tomorrow and every day and appreciate everything you have. Thank you.